But what I wanted to talk about today was the fact that we're in the strangest, arguably the stupidest of timelines at the moment. And of course, I'm referring to Trump and the kind of capriciousness with which he begins and then reverses foreign policy positions. And principally, if we look at both Ukraine and Iran, that can tell us something. So, the stated policy with Ukraine, obviously in collusion, not very well disguised collusion with Russia, was that Trump, when coming to office, would, as he called it, make the quickest peace ever, and place sufficient pressure on Ukraine to end the war. When he was saying this, it came from a place of immense ignorance, because it didn't take into account the fact that Ukraine is far less dependent on American munitions than has been than perhaps Trump is aware of. Not only do they have their own very productive munitions industry, making thousands upon thousands of cheap drones and missiles, but also the American under Biden, what Biden had basically supplied Ukraine with was surplus stock, stuff that was going to rust otherwise, and probably that is arguably less useful. A lot of the Trump gave away a huge amount of leverage over Ukraine by insisting that Europeans step up and fund it, which they have done. And so now that we get to a point where Trump is hoping that Vladimir Putin was hoping that Vladimir Putin would make certain concessions at the negotiating table, unaware. I mean, the only person in the world unaware of the fact that the Russians aren't going to do that. Putin has based his reputation on not doing that. And of course, huge numbers of people in the Putin administration and in Russia in general believe that Russia's entirely justified in what it's doing. What the rights and wrongs of that are slightly immaterial, but people believe what they believe. And so Trump now has begun to pivot on Russia and on Ukraine. And the noises coming out of the White House is that he's frustrated with Putin. And I think Zelensky would be a fool to put too much store by this, because it might be that Trump changes his mind on a whim in the coming weeks. The other the other side to behold is, of course, Iran, where Trump has, after 13 days of renewed bombing, breaking the original peace agreement with the Iranians, and the Iranians are now saying, well, the terms of peace are going to be far, far more stringent, based on your bad faith. He's now being told by his senior strategists that America is running out of munitions. Stop-start wars will tend to do that. You cannot simply you cannot simply run the logistics of a war in that way. So you have, sorry, my car. So you have these two sort of absurd situations, and I think both of them are, if you look at it from Trump's perspective, both of them are opportunities that he believed for his own personal advancement and enrichment. And they both now and opportunities for his own his vanity to be stroked, to be seen as
this kind of deal maker, as he likes to think of himself as. Um, when he's speaking of deals, which are the sorts of kind of disreputable kind of handshake deals that he's used to. This is what is going on in his mind. He's not really paying any credence to the structures of international law that have been there for almost, nearly 500 years since the Treaty of Westphalia. He doesn't know about any of that. What he knows is making kind of backroom deals with sort of kind of the arseholes that he would associate with at one of his golf clubs. And that maps into this kind of fantasy version, a fantasy alpha male version that he has of himself as the guy that secures things on a handshake. And there's a certain tier of the American population, I think, that likes that about him. That they see him as this kind of unorthodox figure, an orthodox kind of manifestation of kind of American boardroom capitalism, and and imagine that is the force, the primal force that kind of reshapes the world. No, it's not, guys. It's kind of violent, rabid nationalism, by and large, that seems to reshape the world. The kind of the notion that he is at a place in both conflicts where he doesn't know what he doesn't know. He has no understanding of the kind of the dynamics of between Iran and the Gulf states, and if he did, he wouldn't have begun what he began. It was revealed. I was watching Yanis Varoufakis being interviewed by Richard D. Wolff for DiEM25, and Yanis Varoufakis made the point that had it not been for Trump's adventures in the Gulf states would have invested something approaching in AI and in other hardware and in weapons, something approaching $3 trillion into Wall Street. And that's a $3 trillion that would be very, very handy right now, just as the AI bubbles are close to bursting, and massive, massive bailouts will be required. So that's what Trump's adventurism has cost. And the decision to flip on Russia will not come without consequences. The idea, I mean, I do wonder whether there are people around Putin who predict this, that Trump will become inevitably the attention span of a fruit fly and will eventually flip on Putin when the quick win of ending the war in Ukraine on Russia's in Russia's favor, when that doesn't happen. I mean, it wasn't hard to predict that Trump would tire of it all and become frustrated. And I suppose when you look at American presidents who've done largely similar things to Trump, there isn't a single American president who isn't on some level a war criminal. But one of the reasons why large parts of the American establishment don't like Trump isn't because he chooses to bomb Iran. A great many of them would have longed to. I mean, Hillary Clinton would have certainly done the same if she had the opportunity. It's because he makes the business of American empire look stupid. He does it as a clown show, and largely doesn't care because he is narcissistic enough to see to be interested purely in the spoils for himself. He makes it look ludicrous, and that's why they despise him. Not because he's a crook, not because he encourages racism or engages in it, not because he torments desperate poor people crossing the Rio Grande, not because he puts them and their children in cages, not because he bombs children in Iran, not because he helped Netanyahu to do the same to children in Gaza. None of those reasons. It's because he makes the American elite class look ludicrous. And that, in their eyes, is unforgivable. Anyway, there ends that conversation, and I'll be back tomorrow. I think. Like I said, the burnout thing is taking a while to get over. But yeah, let's see how we go. Take care, everyone. All the best. Bye bye.